Well, good morning. Yesterday I had a little technical difficulty, so I wasn't able to post anything, so sorry about that. Happy Wednesday, or the way I like to say it is Happy Comic Book Day. Big Bang Theory, Sheldon used to always say Wednesday's Comic Book Day, and there's a reason for that, and that's because on Wednesdays, every week, all the new comic books come out, so it's kind of an exciting day if you're a geek. All right, well, good morning, happy Comic Book Day, and I hope you enjoy the show. All right, good morning, everybody. Let's go to work. So today, I wanted to talk to you about, I mentioned in my first video, my little history of myself, that I'm a veteran. I was in the Navy from 1998 to 2002. I did a 4-year enlistment. I was stationed on the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, CVN 69, which is an aircraft carrier, a very, very large vessel. I worked on the flight deck of the aircraft carrier. I did flight deck crash and salvage, which is pretty awesome because I'm sure if you've ever seen commercials for the Navy or anything on TV about the Navy, they've shown the people working on the flight deck of an aircraft carrier with all their different color shirts and stuff. I was a red shirt, not to be confused with the red shirts on the flight deck that do the ordnance. Those are AOs, aviation ordnancemen. I wore a red shirt and I lived and worked on the flight deck, so and I did crash and salvage. So we were basically the firefighters on the flight deck. I can't remember how many fire stations are around the flight deck. I want to remember, I think it's like 22 fire stations that are hoses and stuff like that are on the side of the around the whole flight deck. We also had we had these little fire trucks on the flight deck called P6, it was a P16 at the beginning, and then a P25 fire truck that we got towards the end of my enlistment. And crash and salvage were responsible for any safety and fire fighting on the flight deck. It's a pretty awesome job. According to the Discovery Channel, I think it's like number 6 of the world's most dangerous jobs to have. And it's dangerous. You got anything and everything on the flight deck can kill you if you're not paying attention. We used to say, keep your head on a swivel, and that's for a reason. You got to constantly look out. You don't know what's going on behind you or next to you, and plus you can't hear anything because it's really loud, because the jet engines are, they deafen, they just drown out everything else. It's all it is just loud noise. And you wear hearing protection and everything, and you use hand signals to communicate. And it was a lot of fun. Looking back at it, I would go back in a heartbeat and do it all over again. It really was. It was. I don't know. I like to describe it kind of like it was the best and worst thing I've ever been through in my life. Like, there were the hardest of hard times I've ever had, and the best of best times I've ever had. I met really great people in the Navy that I'm still in contact with, thanks to social media and Facebook and everything. We keep in contact, and those guys are my brothers. We've lived it, and when you're out to sea, it gets, on a deployment, you're out for 6 months, you're gone, and you hit ports and stuff. I got to travel the world because of the Navy, and that was kind of cool. I've been everywhere. Italy, Spain, Portugal, Saudi Arabia. I've been to Dubai, which, by the way, Dubai is such a beautiful place, and one of the best water parks I've ever been to in my life was in Dubai. It's Wild Wadi, I think it was called. What a friggin' water park that was. This was the first time I've ever been on a water slide that goes uphill. Yeah, amazing. Really, really cool. Anyway, I've been to Turkey. I've been to Greece. And, I went mountain biking in Greece. That was kind of fun. Because we were in Crash and Salvage, we had a storage area that was just for Crash and Salvage stuff, hoses and all kinds of equipment and stuff. And there was a lot of room in that. And because we had that storage place, a bunch of the guys actually brought their bikes with them, their mountain bikes, and on a 6-month deployment, kept them in that room. And the one time I got out to ride was on the island of Crete in Greece, and that was a lot of fun. So, like I said, got to travel the world and see a lot of things. And one of the best things in my life happened to me while I was in the Navy, and I met my wife there. She worked in the hangar bay. She was an elevator operator. She brought the airplanes up and down from the flight deck to the hangar bay, and I met her, and it was funny because I met her out in town. I met her in Norfolk, Virginia, at the on base at a recreation place called the Wind and Sea on the base in Norfolk. And it was funny. A friend of mine, Mike, asked me. I was new to the boat. I'd only been on there a few months, and we had gotten back into port, and he said, hey, we're going to the Wind and Sea to play pool. You want to go? And I was like, yeah, sure. I got nothing else to do. So I went out there, and sure enough, there she was playing pool. And we decided to spend, the rest of the time that day together. We drove around Norfolk and talked, and went out to the beach, Virginia Beach, in December, and boy, it was cold, just to go out and do something. So then it was funny because I knew she was in the Navy, but I didn't know she was on my ship when I met her. I had no idea. And I brought her back to the base, and I said, well, what pier can I bring you to? I'll drop you off. And she goes, no, I'm going to the Eisenhower like you are. And I was like, oh, great, you're on the same boat. So yeah, and ever since then, we've been together. The greatest woman I've ever met. And for her to be in the Navy on an aircraft carrier, it was a big deal because women weren't allowed on aircraft carriers until I think she was one of the first groups of women to be allowed on an aircraft carrier, which thankfully she was, because she became my wife, and I'm glad I met her. Yeah, so we always say that we got to go on our honeymoon before we got married, because we got to travel the world together, because all those places I told you about, I was basically there with her. I rode a gondola in Venice, Italy with her. We were everywhere together. Corfu, Greece, oh my God, what a great place that is. And we got to go together. So we were tourists, and we were in love, and it was really, really a great time. Yeah, so being in the Navy, I always knew that if I was going to go into the military, it was going to be the Navy, because my dad was in the Navy. His two brothers, my uncles, were in the Navy, and my brother was in the Navy. Now, my brother, like I said, well, I don't know if you know, but my brother's 10 years older than me, so he went into the Navy too. But, you know, earlier than me. He was there back in the early 80s. And, you know, so it was always, I was brought up in a Navy family, but to be honest with you, I never had any want to go into the military. Usually people go into the military right out of high school. Not me. I was not going to go into the military. If you asked me my senior year of high school, are you going to go into the military? Fuck no. I'm not going to go into the military. There's no way. But then a few things happened in my life, and, you know, with my family and everything, my grandmother passing away, and some bullshit that we had to deal with there, and I found myself, I was 22 years old, in Florida. I had some bills to pay, and I just didn't want to be around anymore. I didn't want to hang around. I didn't want to go back into working in retail and dealing with shitty customers and stuff. So one day I got this idea. I was like, you know what? I'm getting the hell out of here. I am going to the Navy. So I was a recruiter's dream. I walked into the recruiting station and I looked at the guy and I said, let's do this before I change my mind. And he literally took a piece of paper out of his desk, put it on the desk, pointed at me, and said, sign right here. I signed right there, and literally a week later, I was in boot camp. No delayed entry for me. I want to go in, and that's it. I went in. So, I don't know. I mean, boot camp was a pain in the ass. I could probably, you know, tell you all about boot camp in its own show. So, which I probably will, because that was also a really fun time. And fun time, I don't know. I mean, it was awesome looking back, but while you're in there, it's the fucking worst thing ever. But anyway, yeah, so that's a little history on me and my Navy. I'm sure we'll talk about it again, but I'm at work, and thanks for taking the drive with me this morning, and have a wonderful comic book day. Take care, everybody.